Welcome to a special edition of the Ice Guys, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ian Cameron, and today we're going off the board a little bit. No pun intended. We are not talking about any specific NHL games. We're not talking about betting. We're not talking about money lines, totals, any of that stuff. We're doing something a little bit different today because our special guest today had some interesting things that I wanted to talk about and bring as a focus and a topic for this particular show. His name is Kevin Raine. He's been a longtime junior hockey player, professional hockey player, and still playing pro hockey overseas. He's doing a lot of work with young kids in terms of hockey development. He's a big proponent of raising awareness for mental health. A lot of people have been dealing with mental health struggles, depression, especially in a year that we've all had to endure dealing with COVID-19. I know even I've had my own struggles with mental health earlier in my lifetime, especially in my younger years. So it was a good guest, I thought, to bring on to talk about some of these subjects and some of these important topics that really us as human beings, we all deal with this at some point in time. So without further ado, happy to welcome my special guest for the special edition of the show, Kevin Raine. Kevin, thanks for joining the show and welcome.
Hey, appreciate it, Ian. I know it's been a bit of a long time coming. We've been back and forth here and there trying to find a spot to slot this in. And, I've tuned in briefly to previous episodes, and, it truly is a lot different than other episodes, as we, as you said, aren't going to be talking so much about the usual topics and might not be deep diving so much into specific games or whatever. Surely we'll touch on the Stanley Cup final and stuff like that. But, yes, no, it's been quite a year for a lot of people, and that's led me to do what I've been up to. And I myself have taken a year off of professional hockey and have had to find a groove by other means. And fortunately, I get to go back.
Yeah, absolutely. We will get into what you've done previously in hockey and what you're going to be doing moving forward in terms of your pro hockey career. But first, we will touch upon the Stanley Cup final, and I'll preface this by saying Kevin doesn't tune into NHL nightly. He doesn't follow the league day in and day out. Like I know many of our viewers do, because we're watching, we're betting the games. We're totally locked in. We know every stat known to man about each team, all the key players, who's in, who's out, who's injured, who's in good form, who's not in good form. Kevin doesn't really follow and watch too much hockey outside of playing it. And it's rare. But hey, sometimes you got to put yourself in Kevin's shoes here. Sometimes you just want that escape. You play the game and maybe you don't, just get away from it a little bit. I don't need to be watching hockey every single night. There's other things to do with my life. I play the game. Isn't that enough, right? It's that kind of feeling. But I know, Kevin, though, you have been keeping an eye on the Stanley Cup final here with the Montreal Canadiens and the Tampa Bay Lightning. And you have a connection with one of the players on the Montreal Canadiens who just happens to be someone that's just from down the road where I am here in Hamilton. That would be Josh Anderson. And what a time for you to bring up the connection to him, Kevin, considering he scores 2 goals last night in the Game 4 victory for Montreal, including the OT GWG.
Yes. Well, like you said, I'm not frequent to tuning in. It is a lot when you're playing full time and training and then tuning in. I'll see what kind of comes up on the Instagram feeds and I'll keep in touch that way. But other than that, just kind of checking the highlights, seeing the goals and stuff like that. But yes, I played with Josh Anderson in London. And so to see him having the success he's having this late in the season, scoring a couple of OT winners is pretty special. I'm definitely rooting for him. Canadians in a tough spot, given they went down 3, and to claw back against that Tampa Bay team, I'm not sure. We'll see. Anything can happen, and confident that if they've got Andy playing the way he's been playing, that hey, who knows what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. He's played great these whole playoffs, and we were talking just before we started the live show here about the role of enforcers and how fighting's been sort of we're worried about its future. And now if you're going to drop the gloves, you can't just be that limited one-dimensional enforcer. You're there just to fight, essentially, like the Bob Proberts and the Darren Kimballs, and going all the way back. I'm dating myself now bringing up some of these names, but shows you how long I've been watching hockey. But now you're going to have to be someone that can do multiple things, not just fight. You can, you're good at both ends of the ice. You're responsible. You can win faceoffs. You can be out on the penalty kill. You can play on the power play, whatever the case. You can score a little bit. Tom Wilson's an example. I'd even say Josh Anderson, the guy we're just talking about, Kevin's a great example. He's one of those players. He's that physical player where he's got that he's strong, he's powerful. He's got a great skating stride. I think his speed for a guy his size is pretty remarkable. And then, of course, he's got that finishing ability. He's got that offensive upside, too, and he can drop the gloves every now and then. So I find that if you can do multiple things now as an NHL player, that's the role they're looking for. You just can't be that guy that's just out there to be that enforcer, that policeman, if you will, on the ice anymore.
Yeah, and you were touching on briefly in the previous chat we had about how, what you have come to know of the EIHL over in the UK is that it's a bit of a bruiser league. And we were kind of talking about how that's not necessarily the case anymore. There was a time when fighters, only did have to know how to fight. And now that, you got to come in, you got to offer more, you have to have a more well-rounded game. It was kind of when they were weeding those guys out initially that you saw them all kind of go to the EIHL. But, me playing there for the last, this will be my 4th season over the last 5 years. I haven't had to fight much. I play a hard-nosed game and haven't found my gloves off too many times, but I try to talk my way out of those.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those situations where, sometimes I don't always want to drop the gloves in this spot against that guy, but sometimes it's got to be done, especially if you're sticking up for one of your teammates. That's usually when you might jump in a situation like that. All right, we'll get to your hockey stuff in a minute, but first I want to go toward what you've been doing in terms of mental health awareness, and it's been a big proponent of what you've been doing. You've got your own YouTube channel, you've been doing podcasts, you've been doing videos regarding spreading awareness, having people as a guest on your podcast that have had struggles with depression, that have had struggles with mental health. And it's a good time to talk about these kind of issues coming off a COVID-19 pandemic where, look, there's a lot of factors from the pandemic that can lead to depression, that can lead to you battling with mental health struggles and anxiety, loss of a family member if they have lost their life because of the virus, losing your job, being able to pay your rent has been a struggle for a lot of people, in terms of just being able to live day to day. There's been so many issues that people have had to battle through emotionally and mentally over the last year or so. So you stepping up at a time like this, Kevin, and trying to be an outlet for people that are battling these kind of issues on a day in and day out basis, the timing couldn't be better. Talk a little bit about what you've been doing in that regard.
Yeah. So, at the end of last season, everything kind of came to a pretty abrupt halt. And that saw all of us, at least in Belfast, return home. And in my return home, I spent a lot of time not doing very much. I spent my time, lazing around, get up for what, go to bed for what. And I found a really, really bad cycle of what my days looked like, right? Which of course then leads to, now the thoughts are creeping in. Now I've got nothing to look forward to. I'm not particularly excited about anything. And, there's no doubt that, in the instances that you mentioned, the loss of a family member or losing your job and these things, there's always something that can set you off course, but then it's about re-correcting and getting back on course. That's the important part. And so there's no doubt that each and every single one of us are subject to having a bad day. But then of course that bad day could turn into 2, which could turn into a week, which can turn into, weeks, months, years. Right. And so, it took me about 2 months at home of, kind of waiting for what was next, hoping, right. Of course there's lockdown and stuff. So that's further compounding the issues that of course everyone was facing at the time. And so, in that I've talked over the last couple of years about shaving my head for a cause. And at the time, last year I'd said, I think for the second time, the thing is, I think over the last 2 years or 3 years, I've said I was going to do it twice. But then I didn't do it the first time around because I was waiting for an opportunity. And then now this time I said, all right, I'm going to do it. But of course, without the live audiences or any, the ability to bring people together, I've still put that off, seeing that my hair is doing like the Alanis Morissette thing. It's fully down covering. I go topless. It's covering me totally. And, I've waited for that. But then in doing that, I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, where is this money going to go? Where is any donation going to go? But then thinking further on that, it's like, is it a money thing? Do I just want to hand money over, say I cut my hair for mental health and then be done with it? Or is there more to be done here? Is there more effect that can be made by action? And that led me to decide that I wanted to have discussions. And the very first discussion was with my mom, and we went for a car ride just to kind of offload all these ideas. And so it's a 45-minute car ride of me and mom going like, oh man, like what do we do? Do we give away money and like it disappears, or do we talk about it? Well, what should we do? Which then led into discussions with ex-teammates, which led into discussions with mental health professionals in the field, and then strangers reaching out with a story. And the more diverse those conversations got, the more people got to see them. And in the case that say I continue to do that, I think that no doubt by having these conversations, it allows more people to have them, realize how normal it is to have a bad day that might lead into a few more bad days, and how effective and how liberating that can be to discuss that in a safe space. And so I just think the more that we can have these discussions, the more people are affected positively.
It's so true, because you keep it closed inside of you and you don't talk to anybody about what you're going through. It's going to make things worse, and it's going to make the emotions worse. It's going to make your struggles even harder to overcome. Where if you open up a little bit and you have a lending ear, someone that cares, someone that's listening to your concerns, your struggles, your worries, it's going to go a long way to maybe helping that person turn the corner, and eventually get on the path. I mean, I've had, if you want to talk about some specific struggles you've dealt with, you can in just a second. But even for me, when I was a kid, I wasn't the popular in school. I wasn't the popular kid, and it was a depression type of thing for me that I was going through. I was always that one. I was off, in the corner doing my own thing, and it was difficult I was shy. I was timid. I was all kinds of those things. It was not easy for me to make friends and that kind of thing. And, through elementary school, I got through it. But then all of a sudden you're going to high school. There's all kinds of new, people you've never talked to or seen before. And at that point in my life, high school was like, I would say it was almost like you're going to the death chamber almost. It felt like for me, it was just that panic. Like, I'm going to have to try to meet new people. I'm not good at it. I struggle with it. I'm worried. I'm petrified. People are going to respect me, like me, want to be a friend of mine, that kind of thing. And I'd wake up every morning and I'd have it'd be the sweats. It would be the knots in the stomach. It would be just this dread of, my gosh, I got to wake up and start this day and go to school. And that's where things were at for me, at that point in time. And it was just difficult for me to associate and have relationships with other people, and very, very, secluded, unfortunately, back in those days for me. Now I can't shut up. So, things have completely kind of turned around for me. And now I'm in such a completely different place now where I feel confident. I've got, friends that I've made, in the area, people that and really it was toward the end of high school and college where I overcame it. And, I started to have a little bit more confidence in myself. And it was just that scare. And I think that fear and that belief that, hey, you're a good kid. There's things people will like about you. Just, believe in yourself, have that confidence, and take that step, and that's what you have to do. If you're battling a demon and you don't think you can overcome it, if you don't have the will to take the first step to try to overcome it, you're never going to overcome it. I finally did that, and in a different spot now. And now I'm in a job that I love. I'm a huge sports fan. Being able to work from home, for the last 10 years as a sports bettor and handicapper, and now get to do shows daily talking about something I love. I've met so many great people in the business, either personally, face-to-face, when I've made trips south of the border, specifically to Las Vegas, people that I've done shows virtually with on YouTube. They're all great people. We have formed incredible friendships. And now to see the place I'm in with my social surroundings now compared to, say, that kid from 15 to 20 years ago that was battling just to make one friend and find one friend. It's amazing. And I took that step. Thank God I did. And I'm in a much different spot now because of it.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. And, I think just looking at the story in its entirety, like, we all want to be accepted. We all want love and acceptance. And if we're not receiving that, we're not getting that, we're having, we had a couple bad experiences, which has now just brought in this fear of everything to come. You think everyone's against you. You think everyone's talking about you. You think that you won't be accepted, and you haven't given yourself that chance to, determine whether or not you would be. But, I think that's experienced so much by everyone, right? Whether that's me going out in public or meeting a new group, or, I'll step in the Belfast Giants locker room again this season in front of 20 new faces. right? And I want the boys to like me. I want the boys to accept me. We all want that. And, I think, the real thing that we have to focus on in this discussion is to be kind, be accepting, be open. People are different, whether it be their race, their sexuality, anything that can make them different in any way. They are different. It doesn't make them wrong or bad or anything else, and if they deserve the same respect as everybody else. We all deserve respect, regardless of where we're at or what our scenario is, regardless of what kind of scenario we're in. And so that's what I'd say. I'm glad that of course, you had a moment or a time period in your life where you were able to take that step, as you say, and now look where you are, rather than having continued down that. And what does that look like? And that, of course, because we all walk this path of wanting that acceptance and having that fear, it doesn't always wind up good for people. And so, having those support systems around, and, hopefully having people that have heard this discussion to understand the importance of being kind and being accepting, and, hey, like, he's sitting by himself, like, come on over, like, hey, how are you? What are you up to? Just especially in a school setting is my thinking, right? But yeah, if we can just be more accepting and more kind and more loving to one another, then, we have less of these situations occurring.
Yeah, exactly. And especially face to face, that's where you really want to be, including and be accepting, as you mentioned, and just getting to know other people. That's what it's all about. And, there's much more that we have to overcome in terms of getting a tolerant society these days, thanks to, unfortunately, social media for me is a godsend, because I use it properly. I use it respectfully. I'm going to go out there on Twitter sometimes. I'm going to call out a manager, but I'm not going to talk about race. I'm not going to talk about religion. I'm not going to talk about their background or bring their family into it. I'm just going to say, hey, that manager, what a terrible job he is putting that pitcher in, or whatever the case may be. Hey, going for it on fourth down on that play. If you're the NFL coach, what the hell are you thinking? That's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to insult them personally or any member of their family. And unfortunately, you've got people now that use Twitter, that use Facebook, Instagram, all these social media platforms. They can insult anybody they want, put it on there, the keyboard warriors, as I like to say, and not be held accountable for it. And these are usually people that don't feel any sort of remorse for hurting someone else with words. And even though you're not saying it, you see them typed on the screen, it can hurt people. So, and unfortunately, there is that group of people that do that, use that just to basically insult and get on other people and really, and be cruel about it, and hate filled, about it, where they will bring up race, they will bring up religion, they will bring up, like, the political world. I try to stay away. I'm done talking publicly about my political beliefs and all that, but it absolutely sickens me. And I don't care if you're liberal, I don't care if you're a conservative, I don't care, whatever. There used to be a time, especially even in my younger years and when my parents were younger too, you could have a political disagreement and still say, but you know what, you're a good guy. It's a respectful disagreement. I like you. We're still good friends, but we disagree on our political stripes here. We're on different sides of the fence there, but hey, guess what? I'm still your friend. I still love you. You're still a good person. You got a great family. You treat everybody the way they should want to be treated. And we don't have that now. It almost feels like that so many people, if you're against me politically, I hate you. And I can't talk to you ever again. I'm done with you. And you're seeing this kind of basically behavior, I find, across the board with a lot of people, and not just politically. I mean, any other disagreements too, where just you have a simple disagreement and it turns into the end of a friendship, the end of a relationship. I'm never speaking to you again. And then you start insulting them and their family and all that. And I find myself saying, where is society going right now here in 2021? Because in some instances, Kevin, it's not going to a place I want it to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, to touch on the social media and the issues you see in those discussions, I think it's very, very important to acknowledge that while there are so many people doing this online, there is a larger group of people who sit back and go, right? They shake their head, they stay away, they don't need to be involved. And it's because those people know that by making that comment, they're not providing anything, and they're wasting their own energy by putting anything they could out there, because, beyond that problem, the online social problem is the problem that everyone's so defensive of their own beliefs that they're not willing to be open to maybe learn something, right? Like if I'm in a conversation with you and we do talk about the politics or we do talk about something, I'm creating an opportunity for you to potentially change my mind. But if you don't change my mind, then at least we can leave the conversation the old school way, as you say, where, I'm not going to be upset at you for believing that. I might, be very strongly in my own belief, but, I don't want to hate you because you think differently, and then maybe that's an instance where, if we both come to the conversation with an open mind and, not assuming that we're right and that we could teach each other something, well, maybe we both leave the conversation better. And then in those discussions, just like the mental health ones, just like politics, just like literally any discussion you can have, you come to the conversation with an open mind, you might leave a little better for it. But if you don't come out to it with an open mind, you come to it closed-minded and right, and anybody that's not right is wrong. And if they're wrong, they're idiots. And if they're idiots, they're, whatever. They're nothing to me. Well, what kind of environment are we creating, either it be in the workplace or, at school or whatever, if that's what we bring to that, so just, again, more acceptance, more open-mindedness, and, don't assume you know everything.
More tolerance and a willingness to learn, even if you disagree with the opinion of someone else, learn and find out, okay, I totally disagree with your point of view, but why do you feel that way? Let me hear. Let me listen here. Why are you against me in terms of what do you see maybe that I don't? You can at least hear it out and be respectful, be courteous, and you don't have to just say, I'm done with you. I'm not going to talk to you ever again. And that's I do. Am I ever going on an NBA show? Like we're going to do an NBA Finals show for Game 1 of the Bucks and the Suns in a couple hours on Pub Sports Radio. And I'm going to be with my colleagues there. I like the Suns tonight in Game 1. If my colleague says he likes Milwaukee tonight, I'm not going to say, well, you're an idiot. You're a moron. I'm done with you. I'm not doing shows with you ever again. You're not my friend ever again. No, not in a million years. I mean, you've got to be tolerant and respectful of someone that does not agree with your opinion. It's simple as that. You got to listen to it. And if you don't agree, and if you still don't agree with it, then you say, you know what, I don't agree with it, but hey, I respect your opinion. And and at the end of the day, who the hell cares if you disagree? Is the person that you're disagreeing with a good human being? Are they living life the right way? Do they treat others well? Do they have a good family, or do they treat them well? How do they carry themselves as a human being, regardless of whether you disagree with them on a certain topic? That's what matters in the end. So to me, I find too much of that. It's right away. I think cancel culture is part of that. And there's a cancel culture element in all of this. You disagree with me. I don't agree with it. You will not change my mind. And I cannot stand by someone that thinks the way you do. Get out of my life. Mm-hmm. You're done. And unfortunately, there's people that think that right now. And it's saddening. It's saddening because I think it's a much more difficult society now than it's been in previous decades to be tolerant of others when they don't share the same thoughts or beliefs or opinions as you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and, again, back to the social media, if you do have an opinion that is hateful or, maybe we'll call it wrong, everyone has their opinion. The issue is that you can easily find a community of people online that might be as hateful or more than you are, which are then shaping your views and reaffirming your views, maybe in a negative light, and so in the case of, there's a lot of, politics going on regarding like race and racism, right? And if you are hateful for whatever reason you are, it's a shame that you're able to find that community of people online and be fed whatever it is they're feeding you, which leads into the next point. I recommend to anybody, working on their own mental health or how they're feeling, their, overall wellness, there's things that you got to shut off. There's things that you can't look at. There's things that don't deserve your energy. I'll look at a few memes and laugh at them. Yeah, sure. But, if the humor is distasteful or the humor gets me thinking about, for example, you might see a meme that says, oh, like, what she says she's doing versus what she's actually doing. Right? It's regarding like a girlfriend or something. And it might be a funny picture. Ha ha ha. But it's like, that's some negativity I don't think you need to be seeing, especially consistently. And so I've, in my own, over the last year, in my own, pursuit of like being better, it's away with the memes, it's away with the humor pages, away with like the stuff that I think, A, it's burning up my time because I'm scrolling for hours on it. And B, it's not exactly what I want to be reading. And so now in come all the positive accounts where if you are deciding to focus your attention on, health and wellness, well, now I'm following psychologists, I'm following, traditional medicine folks, or just different channels, right? And we have the ability to, so long as we recognize, what are you watching? What are you feeding yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff about the mental health discussion. It's a discussion there's never a bad day to have that discussion. Check out Kevin's work on YouTube, his channel. He's done a bunch of podcasts with different guests with their own mental health experiences in the past. So check that out. Make sure, and again, just know that talk about it. If you've got some kind of thing that's bothering you in the pit of your stomach, the worst thing you can do is close everybody off and not talk about it to anybody. You got to do that. That's very, very important. No question. Kevin, we'll pivot to your hockey days now, your pro hockey career, which is still ongoing, about to resume overseas in Belfast, Ireland, in the EIHL. And I'm sure you're looking forward to getting back to it. Talk about, where you play. I know Sudbury, right, was your Ontario Hockey League junior team way back in the day. Talk about your journey through the hockey ranks for you.
All right. Well, first, before I go all the way back there, I have to, because we're talking politics and stuff like that, I do have to correct you and say that I'm going to Belfast, Northern Ireland. Not Northern Ireland, actually in the UK.
Ireland, good point.
EU.
Like Rory McIlroy, right? He's Northern Ireland.
Northern Ireland.
He's not Ireland. Yes, there's a big difference.
Yes. And so if you have an understanding or a brief understanding of the history in Belfast, a little bit of political divide there. And I made the mistake of saying that I was going to Ireland, and I quickly had, and this was, years ago, can't wait to go to Ireland. They're like, whoa, like it's Northern Ireland. I'm like, hey, okay, like I didn't know that you guys were at war within the last, 30 years or whatever. But anyhow, a lot of political stuff.
It's kind of like the way Ontario and Quebec was in the 90s when they wanted to separate, for a little bit at that time. There was that little fracture between the two, provinces. Kind of like, I guess there's something, I don't know if it's exactly similar, but there's obviously conflict, Ireland versus the Northern Ireland territory. Yep.
Right. So some conflict there. But so winding it back, I grew up in Dryden, Ontario. Moved away at the age of 15 to go play AAA in Kenora. That was an hour and a half west of me. And then was drafted into the London Knights. I was drafted in the 94 draft as a 93. So missed my first year and then was luckily able to get caught in that overage year, call it. Down to London for a couple good years, great experience. And then eventually was traded to Sudbury, where I played half of my 19-year-old year and 20-year-old year. And I have to thank Mark and Dale Hunter for that move, because they traded me out with the intention of build a competitive team to go win again that year. But ultimately, I was a scratch. I wasn't playing much, and that move allowed me to play. And so learned so much in London. What an organization! And then I was able to take that experience to Sudbury and then into my pro career.
Yeah, absolutely. The Hunters, it goes without saying, Dale, Mark, throw Tim Hunter in there. And as they say on Letterkenny, those are some tough pricks. And that's exactly the case. No question. They were tough. They would stand down to nobody on the ice when they played the game. I'll tell you what, when you're playing junior hockey and you got guys like that to coach you and learn from, that's got to be a hell of an experience, is it not?
Man, I don't know how they do it, because they are, that old school kind of coach, at least what I would call an old school coach. And, if I made some mistakes, I was hearing about it on video, and, the accountability was very, very high. And, it's amazing the pros that they're able to forge out of that team, out of that. I look at a team picture and I'm one of few that isn't in the NHL, never mind just playing pro. And so they got the stuff, man. They got a good thing going there. And, that same accountability they try to hold on guys, wherever I've gone elsewhere where they try to do the same thing, the player doesn't get the same response. And so their ability to kind of walk that fine line of very, very high expectation without kind of taking the wind out of a player's sails is very, secret sauce, call it. I don't know. I don't get how they do it. I would love to have a conversation with them on exactly that. Yeah, it's just a factory, NHL player factory, the London Knights.
They have been, so many, the countless number of quality players have come out from that London Knights team over the years. And I remember the team way back when. It had Robbie Schremp, it had Perry on it, Mike Richards. I mean, it was arguably one of the greatest assembled OHL or junior hockey teams of all time, the one that won the Memorial Cup that year in the early 2000s. There's no question that was a great group that year for the London Knights, and they built a very good winning culture, winning environment there with that group. Talk about now Belfast. This is the fascinating part, because look, when you think of hockey hotbeds in the planet, you don't think of Ireland, or Northern Ireland, I should say. You don't think of that being a hockey hotbed, but here you are playing in Belfast for the EIHL. Talk about experiences. I think the team's been pretty good since you've been there too. I think I've seen your highlights. You've won some championships. You've had a lot of success there. So talk about the past. Talk about how have you gotten ready for returning to play? I mean, obviously training off season and exercising, all that stuff, and working out, fitness, all that is a critical component to getting a player ready for the upcoming season. And I know you're going back there to play, but unfortunately here, particularly in Ontario, we know it's been harder than hard. For anybody to, gyms have been, I think, unfairly put in this position where they've been closed for so long. And, it's not just about, hey, keeping yourself in good shape. We talk about mental health. Mental health sometimes is physical health, and being able to work out, being able to keep yourself in good shape maybe leads to better mental health because you feel better. You feel more confident. You're not as self-conscious about yourself. If you can work out, keep yourself in good shape, it gives you something to do during the day. But for some reason, I think the gyms have been penalized far too much by the restrictions caused by the pandemic. So how's that impacted you in particular as you're getting ready for this season? And just talk about overall being in Belfast, playing in that league.
Well, so after when I, jumped into the pro ranks, I spent 2 years in the LA Kings organization playing for, the Monarchs that then became the Ontario Reign. And after 2 years of that, thought, okay, maybe a mix-up will benefit me. I'll get to go to a different team, different club, and try to, make myself, a full-timer. Because those first 2 years pro, I'm in and out of the lineup, I'm scratched, I'm trying to find ways to separate myself, one of which, should I fight? Should I do more fighting? And ultimately, I didn't do that. I wanted to play. Left and went to the Carolina Hurricanes organization, where I was between Charlotte and Florida. And ultimately in a situation there where, hey, you'll play when somebody gets hurt. Next thing you know, I'm out for 2 calendar months. Nobody's going down. And, these guys are all on their 2-way NHL, AHL deals while I'm on my, 2-way East Coast AHL deal. And, it wasn't a situation where I was set to thrive in, unfortunately. And after 2 calendar months of not playing, it's like, okay, next year is going to look different. I'm going to take a shot somewhere else and, kind of nix the whole North American thing. So in comes the opportunity to go to Belfast. I had guys that I knew that were playing there, training partners in the summertime, who talked it up to be quite a spot. And, they were able to uphold those promises because, everything they said the organization and the city the country was all, awesome. It's been an amazing time over there. And, of course, you said, this pandemic has really thrown a wrench into things. I was working construction last summer, and I just spent a year in the classroom because I knew that I wanted to be close to home during the whole COVID thing. And, I didn't want to go play for a new club in a new place in these times. So I intentionally took the year off, and now, have done what I could, stay in shape. I've got access to, a couple of unique, home gyms, we'll call it. And, that's the whole off-ice fitness thing has always been my strength. The on-ice skill is what I wish I could really, get to work on. As you said, things are locked down, gyms are locked down. So I've made the best of what I could. And I'm really, really excited to return to Belfast as I've, taken the year off. And, that message of play as long as you can that any guy that's ever retired will ever say. is ringing pretty loud for me right now. I take the year off, and of course, not sure if it's am I retired? Am I not a hockey player anymore? Like, what is next? And I'm very grateful to the Belfast Giants organization for having the trust in me to, maintain my fitness over this course of the year off. And I'm set to go back, and everything from the fans to the rink to, how breezy our travel schedule is, to the city itself and the nightlife. The city is just awesome. And to be able to go to Europe and be speaking English is unique in itself, because I had a small stint in Austria where, only half the team does speak English and the other half are broken English, and there might be one or two translator type guys in the room, but it's, it is not the same. And I got teammates ordering my lunch, and I, can't communicate, and it's so important for me to, I realized that, I want to be able to communicate to whoever I'm around with. And so back to Belfast, year 4 after a year off, couldn't be more excited. And yeah, that's very grateful for the opportunity to return.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know someone that has gone through a similar career trajectory with his playing career as you, and he's been on as a guest multiple times. Devin Didiometti, he has played overseas with a bunch of different countries, Italian league even. I didn't even know there was an Italian league when he mentioned it to me. But he mentioned one thing. He says, sometimes if you want to prolong your playing career, you got to be a Rhodes Scholar. Sometimes you just have to. You got to pick up the suitcase and just get ready to knock on doors, travel places, and find that next opportunity. Mm-hmm. That's what it boils down to. Even if it is, in Europe and lower leagues, that's sometimes, if you love the game and you have the passion, you want to be on the ice, you want to be part of that environment, one of the guys, still be on the ice in a team environment at a professional level. You got to be willing to do that, right? Make sacrifices, travel, go to foreign countries, where obviously the predominant language isn't always English. You're fortunate, obviously, to be in Northern Ireland where it is, but obviously in other countries, not the case. And it's an adjustment, and it's a little culture shock, I believe, in some cases for a lot of players that do that especially for the first time. So, but sometimes you got to do that, as you mentioned, Kevin, to prolong the pro career. I want to talk about Ireland specifically. I haven't been there. I haven't even been to the UK, but one thing I want to do, Kevin, is I want to travel more now that we get through this bloody pandemic once and for all. Travel, see the world, see different places, and Ireland's probably on that list of places I want to get to eventually. England, more places in Europe. What's the environment like? How have you enjoyed being there? What, in terms of hockey interest, what's it like? Is it getting better? Is it getting stronger? Could there be a day where hockey is a big time thing? And not only Ireland, but the entire UK. We don't think of the UK as very much into hockey. Do you see a pathway where things could change in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
So the introduction of the Belfast Giants to Belfast happened in the year 2000. And they introduced the team intentionally to have a place where the city can unify. Because, of course, everything is football, everything's rugby. And because these teams and clubs have been around for so long, if you cheer for this club, you are Catholic. If you cheer for this club, you are Protestant. And there is that divide that's just been, the political divide we touched on earlier, where it's kind of like, well, where do we go to be together? And so Belfast Giants are in, what call it neutral territory in the middle of the city. We wear teal, which is, a neutral color, and they don't do an anthem before the game. And so they got come together, right, as puck drops. And it's like, it's such a special place.
Oh, the Beatles. You can't go wrong with that.
Yeah. And so, hockey itself, at least in Belfast in the UK, of course, they have, the other sports that are just so deeply rooted in the culture to wrestle against, which make it tough. But, in the case of Belfast, especially, I've had fans in tears telling me how special the club is to them, given that it's a place where they get to go, where there is no noise politically, and where everyone does get to be together and wear the same colors. And to me, that's just so special, and it's special to be a part of. But I think the future of the game, at least in Belfast specifically, I think what you truly need is a lot of opportunity for youth to play hockey. And so in the entire Ireland, Northern Ireland, there's only 2 skating rinks, and it's the big rink that we play out of, the SSE Arena, as well as the Dundonald Ice Bowl, which is like a community center. And so there's only 2 rinks. And so, with that, simply, there's just not enough ice, not enough, opportunity for kids to get on the ice and to play. And, of course, because of that, there isn't much for minor hockey programs. And then on top of the rinks, minor hockey programs, there's also not the people to run that and the coaching and everything that comes along with that. And so, I think it's there are players that come out of it, and there is, the junior Giants, and it's just a small, in terms of what we would call a big minor hockey association, it's a very small, we're talking 1 team per age group of kids playing hockey over there. And so, like I said, there's just a lot of different barriers to getting more kids playing, which would then have more interest built. But, the interest that is there is very passionate, very deep. And, the fans in Belfast are absolutely incredible. And the experience in the SSE Arena is amazing.
Wow.
But yeah, the future's, it's all about getting people on board with it, because anybody you talk to who says that they have experienced the game said they loved it. And often, and so many times, of course, because it was the first introduction to hockey, everyone's story is like, yeah, went once, haven't missed a game since. Kind of like that kind of story. So the more people you can kind of recruit into that, hey, have you ever been? No? Hey, well then come on out. And then that's how you build that fan base to, even greater scale.
It's about getting them into the arena once. And then once you get them in once, you feel like you're that fisherman they got the fish, he's reeled them in and you got them for good. That could be the case there. You get them in the building once, they see one hockey game, they fall in love with the sport. And look, the fact they've got at least some youth programs starting to establish themselves. Hey, it's a little step, but it's a step. Mm-hmm. And you can't make that giant leap until you take that first little step. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely good to see. That's pretty damn cool, though, when you told me "Come Together" by the Beatles is used as they drop the puck there. Just to me, here come old flat top, he comes moving up slowly. No, I'm a big karaoke guy, and I love music, so don't get me going, Kevin, with that. Well, you're going to get me. I'm going to turn this into a concert, and that may not be a good thing with my voice, but nevertheless, that's awesome, though. It sounds like it's a good environment. Does the crowd get loud? Like let's say it's a playoff game. Do you find that crowd when you're playing at home in that arena? It makes a difference.
It gets rocking, man. Wow. It's a special place, and we packed the place. It's I think the rink holds something like 7,500, 8,000 fans, and of course with the COVID, we don't know how many we're going to be able to seat in the building. Hopefully we can have it packed. But yeah, no, we've had some big games, scored some big goals, and the place has been shaken, no doubt. Excellent fan base, and shout out to Boomerang Corner, who is the loud corner of the rink, and they're always got the drums going, the banners flying, and the chants for everyone. So it's I just can't wait to be back. I can't wait to be able to go back.
Yeah, look out. Belfast, Northern Ireland, in that arena, we've got a little Nassau Coliseum developing here. One of those arenas where it's not as much a capacity as some other arenas, but the crowd that's in there, it's loud. They make their presence heard. It's pretty cool. Definitely sounds like it's a great environment to play in front of. We will wrap up with you, Kevin, in just a few minutes. The last thing I wanted to bring up is what you're doing with the youth, in terms of you got a hockey, I think, skills development program that you are doing and have started in the last, I think, year and a bit. So tell us a little about that.
Yeah, so I've launched, it's called Personal Best Hockey, which, was originally aimed at growing the game in Northern Ireland, by trying to create opportunity for everyone to try the game, play the game. And it's been a tough one in terms of red tape. And then, of course, the ultimate red tape being that everything shuts down and I've had to return back this way. The unfortunate thing in the development of Personal Best Hockey and its original aim is that, I was on a ancestry visa, which was basically me committing long-term to stay in Belfast in order to be able to get a UK passport and then be able to transition into doing the personal best stuff full time afterwards. Now I'm in a situation where, visa implications of, the technicality in there saying that you can't be out of country for certain periods of time throughout the duration of each of those 5 years. I think it's 180 days out of every year you have to remain in country. COVID has seen me gone for 400 and something odd days. And so, hopefully be given some forgiveness for the sake of being able to continue with whatever personal best hockey turns into. But it's more a message than it is, what it physically is. And that's to encourage people to be their personal best and to be in continuous pursuit of your personal best, and whether that's in hockey or life or anything you're aiming at, the attempt to be your personal best and the pursuit of that, if that's what your aim is, you'll end up all right, and just encouraging everyone to, if you haven't played hockey and you want to try it. If you are, looking to gain that extra edge, well then let's gain that extra edge. Or if you're, on the life side of things and in the discussions I've been having, and, if you're having a tough go, then, let's talk about that. If you, see things that you can be doing a little better to then see ripple effects for better for yourself, let's make those small steps so that eventually we can gain a stride, and so just encouraging everyone to be their personal best as I continue every day to strive for my own personal best.
And that's so true. It's just try to be better than you were the day before and have that ambition to do it. Like, okay, the best season I had in a certain sport for me work wise 2 years ago, I'll try to I'll do that, try to be better than that. You always try to improve, right? You don't want to stay stagnant and say, okay, I finally reached the point where I think I'm doing good enough, because then you don't have anything left to strive for. You've got to still have that ambition, that next goal, and try to keep on improving and keep on perfecting what you do, whatever it is in life. And as long as I think you keep that mindset, it's always going to put you in the best case. Don't get complacent. That's absolutely the best thing I think I could say in terms of advice. And don't get satisfied, and, don't get that fat and happy mindset going, or, hey, I've done this already, that's good enough for me. No, because then you get left in saying, well, this is good enough. And you don't have that drive to push yourself to be better and achieve another level. And I always try to remind myself, always try to be better, than you were the day before, the week before, the month before, the year before. And it keeps you with something to strive at for each and every single day. And by the way, I love that you're doing that and trying to get, kids involved in hockey and helping them perfect their skills. I couldn't even perfect skating properly. So that's why I never even came close to playing. That's why I'm a great hockey analyst and observer, and I love the sport, watching it. Unfortunately, playing it never got there for me, unfortunately. But at least we found other ways to get involved from a sports perspective, for sure. And like I say, passion for sports my whole life. And you sound like you've had that for hockey as well, playing it specifically over these years. Absolutely a blast it was, Kevin, having you join us here on a special edition of the Ice Guys, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network. Pro hockey player Kevin Raine, we thank him for joining us. Kevin, I'll definitely be keeping in touch with you over the months, and I wish you all the best as you begin once again playing overseas in Belfast in the EIHL. Definitely keep an eye on how you're doing over there. In terms of Twitter, I mean, all of our viewers and listeners are interested. How can we follow you? How can we keep in touch with you? All that stuff. But do you use Twitter? Are you on Twitter right now? And if so, where can they find you at?
Well, if you find me on Twitter, it's Make It Rain 11. That's in the spelling of my name, of course. And yeah, I'm not very active on there. I do see what comes up, and it's I try to be a little bit more active on there. I have been active with, the news coming up of going back to Belfast and such like that. But yeah, if you want to follow me on whether it be Instagram or Twitter, the Instagram is just simply my name, no space. And the Twitter is Make It Rain 11.
All right, there we go. Awesome stuff. Thank you very much to our special guest, Kevin Raine, for joining us, and we wish him well as the hockey season overseas is going to be getting underway in the not too distant future. And thanks to all of you for joining us, watching this show and also downloading the podcast, the Ice Guys podcast, and listening to it on the Hockey Podcast Network. We hope you enjoyed this special edition. We're deviating from betting for once and talking about some other things. It's been pretty fun to do that. Thanks to everyone for tuning in, and thanks to our special guest, Kevin Raine. I'm your host, Ian Cameron. Thanks for watching and listening to another edition of the Ice Guys, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network.